The notification lit up my screen at exactly 9:47 p.m. Trevor's live stream had just started. My heart did that stupid flutter it always did when I saw his name. 2 years of dating, 6 months engaged, and I still got butterflies like some lovesick teenager. I was sprawled on our couch, half watching a documentary about ocean wildlife, when the alert pulled me away. Trevor had mentioned wanting to do something special for his followers tonight. Maybe he was finally going to announce our engagement publicly. God knows I'd been dropping hints about it for weeks. I tapped the notification, already smiling. The stream loaded and for a second everything felt normal. Trevor's face filled the screen, that signature charming grin that had made me fall for him in the first place. His blonde hair was perfectly tousled, the way he spent 20 minutes arranging each morning. The lighting was soft, golden, intimate. Then the camera panned slightly and my stomach dropped. There was someone else in the frame, a guy. Young, maybe early 20s, with platinum blonde hair and a tank top that left nothing to the imagination. He was sitting on Trevor's lap, not beside him, on him. Their bodies pressed together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The guy's arm was draped around Trevor's neck, fingers playing with the hair at his nape. They were laughing about something, some inside joke I wasn't part of. The chat was exploding. Heart emojis. Fire emojis. Comments flying by so fast I could barely read them. OMG, they're so cute. Relationship goals. Who is this guy? I'm obsessed. I sat frozen, phone trembling in my hands. The blonde guy leaned in closer, whispering something directly into Trevor's ear. His lips brushed against the skin there, intentional and intimate. Trevor threw his head back laughing, the kind of genuine, unguarded laugh he used to give me during our first few months together, before everything became routine, before I became boring. Then the guy pulled back slightly, just enough for the camera to catch his confused expression. Babe, why do you keep getting notifications? Who's Henry? My name. He said my name. Trevor glanced at his phone, then back at the camera with this theatrical eye roll that made my chest tighten. Oh, that's nobody important. Just my safety net. He said it so casually, like he was talking about a spare tire in his trunk. Henry's this accountant I keep around because, financial security and all that adult stuff. But honestly, the guy's about as exciting as a tax return. Zero passion, zero spontaneity. The chat erupted again. Laughing emojis this time. R.I.P. Henry LMAOO. Poor guy. Imagine finding out like this. But I didn't have to imagine. I was living it. Every humiliating second of it. Trevor continued, clearly enjoying his performance. I mean, don't get me wrong. Stability is nice. Having someone who remembers to pay the electric bill on time has its perks. But when it comes to real connection, real fire, he pulled the blonde guy closer, kissing him hard enough that the chat went absolutely feral. When they broke apart, Trevor's smile was wicked. This is what I actually want. Someone who makes me feel alive. My phone slipped from my hands, clattering onto the hardwood floor. The stream was still playing, their laughter echoing through the empty apartment. Our apartment, the place where I'd spent 2 years building a life with someone who apparently saw me as nothing more than a glorified checkbook with decent credit. I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the walls pressing in from all sides. 2 years. 2 years of supporting his dreams, funding his creative pursuits, making excuses when he'd disappear for days with vague explanations. 2 years of convincing myself that his distance was just stress, that his coldness was temporary, that things would get better after we got married. What an idiot I'd been. The documentary was still playing on the TV, some narrator droning on about deep-sea creatures that survived impossible pressure. I related to those creatures right now, crushed under the weight of humiliation so profound I couldn't even process it properly. My phone started ringing. For one horrible, desperate second, I thought it might be Trevor calling to explain, to apologize, to tell me the stream was some sick joke. But it was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. Hello? My voice came out rough, broken. Is this Henry? The voice on the other end was male, deep and authoritative. There was no warmth in it, but there wasn't cruelty either. Just cold, efficient purpose. Yeah. Who's asking? Someone who just watched the same stream you did. There was a pause, heavy with implication. And someone who knows a lot more about Trevor Caldwell than you do. My heart started racing for entirely different reasons. Now, what are you talking about? Trevor isn't just cheating on you emotionally, Henry. He's destroying you professionally too. Every confidential file you've worked on, every client strategy, every pricing model, he's been selling it all to my competitors. You're not just his safety net, you're his cash cow. The words hit me like physical blows. That's insane. Trevor doesn't even know the details of my work. He knows enough. And he's been using your laptop, your passwords, your trust. The voice turned harder. I can prove everything I'm saying. But we need to meet. Face to face. Why should I trust you? I don't even know who you are. My name is Riker Ashford, CEO of Northpoint Enterprises. And Trevor has been feeding your company's secrets to Helix Corporation for the past 8 months. They're my biggest competitor, and they've been beating me to deals I should have won. It took me 3 weeks to trace the leak back to you, or rather to your fiancé, Northpoint Enterprises. I knew that name. Everyone in the industry did. Riker Ashford was a legend. Brilliant, ruthless, and notoriously private. If he was calling me directly, this was serious. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my mind racing through implications and possibilities. Because I despise being played, and I suspect you feel the same way right now. Because I need someone on the inside who understands how Trevor operates. And because frankly you deserve to know the truth before he ruins you completely. His tone shifted slightly, almost sympathetic. Meet me tonight, Cascade Tower, Penthouse A, 9 o'clock sharp. Come alone. And if I don't, then Trevor continues using you until there's nothing left to take. Your career, your reputation, your self-respect. He'll drain it all. The choice is yours, Henry. But choose quickly. The clock's ticking. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, the glow from the TV casting strange shadows across the room. On the floor, my phone screen showed Trevor's stream still going. The view count climbing into the thousands. People watching my humiliation in real time, treating my pain like entertainment. Something inside me hardened, crystallized into something cold and sharp and dangerous. I picked up my phone, ended the stream, and checked the time. 8:15 p.m. 45 minutes to decide if I was going to roll over and take this or if I was going to fight back. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Cascade Tower was across the city, but I'd make it in time. Trevor wanted to play games? Fine. But he just invited the wrong player to the board. Cascade Tower stood like a monument to excess in the heart of the financial district. I'd passed it 100 times on my way to work, always wondering what kind of people actually lived in a place like this. The lobby was all marble and gold accents, with a chandelier that probably cost more than my annual salary hanging from the vaulted ceiling. The doorman gave me a suspicious once-over as I approached, clearly questioning whether I belonged here. Penthouse A, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Riker Ashford is expecting me. His expression shifted immediately from suspicion to professional courtesy. Of course, sir. The private elevator is to your right. It will take you directly up. The elevator was mirrored on all sides, which meant I couldn't escape my own reflection. I looked exactly how I felt. Exhausted, betrayed, hollowed out. Dark circles under my eyes from too many late nights covering for Trevor's absences. My shirt was wrinkled because I'd been lying on the couch when my world imploded. Hair a mess. Face pale. I looked like a victim. I hated it. The elevator climbed smoothly, floor numbers ticking by in golden light. 43 floors up, into a world I'd never been part of. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into a private foyer that was bigger than my entire apartment. And there he was. Riker Ashford wasn't what I expected. From his reputation, I'd imagined someone older, maybe late 40s, with that tired corporate ruthlessness you see in business magazines. But the man standing before me couldn't have been older than 35. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair styled in that effortlessly perfect way that probably required a personal stylist. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so precisely it looked painted on. But it was his eyes that caught me, storm gray, sharp and calculating, like he could see through every defense I'd ever built. Henry. He said my name like he'd been saying it for years, familiar and certain. Not a question, a statement. You must be Riker. I managed to keep my voice steady. Barely. He extended his hand. His grip was firm, warm, grounding in a way I desperately needed. Come in. We have a lot to discuss, and I don't believe in wasting time on pleasantries when there's work to be done. The penthouse was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, lights sprawling out like a blanket of stars. The furniture was minimalist but clearly expensive, the kind of pieces you saw in architectural magazines. Original art on the walls, a bar that looked like it belonged in a five-star hotel. Riker walked to the bar without asking. Pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. He handed me one. Whiskey. You look like you need it. I don't really drink. Tonight's different. It wasn't a suggestion. I took the glass. Let the liquid burn down my throat. It steadied something inside me. Brought the world back into focus. Riker sat across from me in a leather chair that probably cost more than my car. Legs crossed, posture relaxed, but somehow still intimidating. Let me be direct, he said. Trevor Caldwell has been systematically stealing confidential information from your company and selling it to Helix Corporation. I have evidence, emails, timestamps, file transfers. He's been doing this for months, possibly longer. Show me. The words came out harder than I intended. Riker pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, then turned it toward me. The screen filled with emails. Trevor's personal account, attached files with names I recognized, proprietary pricing strategies, client acquisition plans, market analysis reports, things that should have been locked behind multiple security protocols. Things only someone with direct access to my work computer could have obtained. My hands started shaking. How did he? Your passwords. Your laptop. You probably gave him access because you trusted him. Riker's expression was unreadable. He used that trust to build a side income selling corporate secrets. Helix has been paying him handsomely for information that's allowed them to undercut every major deal Northpoint has pursued this quarter. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest of my chair, forcing myself to breathe. Trevor hadn't just cheated on me romantically. He'd weaponized our entire relationship, turned every intimate moment into an opportunity for exploitation. Why are you showing me this? I asked, looking up at Riker. What do you want from me? Riker leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I want revenge. But more than that, I want justice. Trevor Caldwell has built his entire lifestyle on lies and theft. He's hurt people, damaged companies, destroyed careers. Someone needs to stop him. His gray eyes locked onto mine. I think that someone should be you. Me? I'm an accountant, not some corporate spy. You're more than that. Riker cut me off, voice sharp. You're smart enough to have built the systems he exploited. You're connected enough to have access he'll never suspect you've weaponed. And most importantly, you're angry enough to see this through. He paused, letting that sink in. Work with me, Henry. Help me take down Trevor and Helix. In return, I'll give you a position at Northpoint, senior analyst, triple your current salary, full authority over a team. My mind raced through the implications. And if I refuse, then Trevor continues destroying you piece by piece until there's nothing left. He'll drain your professional reputation, your finances, your credibility. By the time he's done, you'll be unemployable in this industry. Riker's voice softened just slightly. I've seen him do it before. You're not his first victim, Henry. Just his most recent. The words hit like ice water. Not his first. How many others had there been? How many people had Trevor charmed and used and discarded? What would you need me to do? I asked slowly. First, access to your company's server logs. I need to document every file he's stolen, every breach of security. Then we need to trace the payments from Helix back to him. Establish a pattern that's legally actionable. Finally, Riker smiled, and there was something predatory in it. We're going to make sure everyone in this industry knows exactly who Trevor Caldwell really is. I thought about Trevor's face on that stream, the casual cruelty in his voice when he called me boring, a safety net, nothing important, the way he'd kissed that other guy while thousands of people watched and laughed at my expense. When do we start? I heard myself say. Right now. Riker stood, extending his hand again. Welcome to Northpoint, Henry. Let's burn his world down. I shook his hand, and for the first time since that notification appeared on my screen, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. Walking into my office the next morning felt surreal, like stepping into a life that no longer belonged to me. Everything looked the same. The beige cubicles, the flickering fluorescent lights, the perpetual smell of burnt coffee from the break room. My coworkers were already at their desks, typing away, lost in their own worlds. None of them knew that my entire existence had detonated last night. None of them had seen the stream, witnessed my humiliation broadcast to thousands of strangers. I was grateful for that small mercy at least. I sat down at my desk, logged into my computer with fingers that only shook slightly. Riker's instructions were clear. Access the server logs, identify every file Trevor had compromised, document the timestamps, build an airtight case that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Simple in theory, devastating in practice. The first file I found was dated 3 months ago. A comprehensive market analysis I'd spent weeks developing. Trevor had downloaded it 2 days after completion, then forwarded it to an encrypted email address. I clicked through the logs, my nausea building with each discovery. Client databases, pricing models, strategic plans for acquisitions that hadn't been made public yet. He'd taken everything, systematically pillaging my work like it was his personal treasure chest. But the timestamps were what killed me. July 15th, our anniversary dinner. I thought we were celebrating 2 years together. He'd apparently celebrated by stealing a financial forecast worth millions. August 3rd, the weekend we'd spent at that cabin upstate. I'd been planning a romantic getaway. He'd been copying proprietary algorithms. September 22nd, the night I'd worked late preparing a major presentation. He'd stayed home alone, or so I'd believed. Instead, he'd been in my apartment, on my laptop, betraying me in the most calculated way possible. My phone buzzed. Trevor. Morning babe, thinking about you. Dinner tonight? The casual affection in his message made my stomach turn. How could he send heart emojis while actively destroying my career? How did someone compartmentalize that level of deception? I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Riker along with a simple note. Found everything. Evidence is conclusive. His reply came within seconds. Perfect. Tonight there's an industry gala at the Meridian Hotel. Trevor will be there. He never misses a chance to network and show off. You're coming with me. Time to make him understand he chose the wrong target. My first instinct was to refuse. The idea of facing Trevor in public, of pretending everything was fine while my insides were still raw, felt impossible. But then I remembered his voice on that stream, dripping with condescension, just a safety net. Zero passion. About as exciting as a tax return. I typed back, what time should I be ready? Car will pick you up at 7. Wear something that makes you feel dangerous. The rest of the day crawled by in a blur of spreadsheets and conference calls. I went through the motions, nodded at the right times, provided analysis when asked. But my mind was elsewhere, running through scenarios of the evening ahead. What would I say to Trevor? How would I react when I saw him with that blonde guy, knowing now that the betrayal went so much deeper than infidelity? At 6:30, I stood in my apartment staring at my closet like it held answers to questions I hadn't figured out how to ask yet. Most of my clothes were practical, professional, forgettable. The kind of outfits an accountant wore to blend in and get work done. But tonight wasn't about blending in. I pulled out a suit I'd bought on impulse 6 months ago, but never worn. Charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes. Fitted in a way that actually highlighted my frame instead of hiding it. White shirt, no tie, top button undone. I styled my hair differently, swept back instead of the usual conservative side part. Looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Maybe that was the point. The car Riker sent was a sleek black sedan with leather interior that smelled like money and power. The driver didn't make small talk, which I appreciated. I needed the silence to prepare myself mentally for whatever was about to happen. The Meridian Hotel was hosting the gala in their grand ballroom, a cavernous space dripping with crystal chandeliers and old money aesthetics. I'd been to events like this before, always feeling like an imposter pretending to belong. But tonight, with Riker Ashford waiting at the entrance in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent, I felt different. Henry. His eyes swept over me, approval clear in his expression. You clean up well, thanks. I think I tried for humor, but it came out shaky. He placed his hand on my lower back, the touch firm and grounding. Stay close to me. Let me handle the talking if you're not comfortable. But remember, you have every right to be here. More right than Trevor does, considering he built his reputation on stolen work. We entered together, and I felt eyes turning toward us. Riker commanded attention naturally, but having me at his side seemed to amplify the interest. Whispers followed in our wake. Who was I? Why was North Point's CEO bringing an unknown +1 to an industry event? And then I saw Trevor. He was near the bar, champagne glass in hand, laughing at something a silver-haired executive was saying. The blonde guy from the stream was plastered to his side, hand possessively on Trevor's waist. They looked comfortable together, like they'd been a couple for years instead of whatever timeline this actually represented. Trevor's gaze swept the room absently, then stopped dead when it landed on me. On us. His face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, recognition, shock, and finally something that looked uncomfortably like fear. He excused himself from his conversation and started walking toward us, the blonde guy trailing behind uncertainly. Henry? Trevor's voice was careful, controlled. What are you doing here? I forced myself to smile, channeling a confidence I didn't entirely feel. Attending an industry event. Same as everyone else. With Riker Ashford? Trevor's eyes darted between us, trying to piece together a puzzle that clearly didn't make sense to him. Riker's hand was still on my back, steady and possessive. Henry's joining my team at North Point. We've been discussing some fascinating approaches to market analysis. He's quite brilliant. Actually, I'm surprised your company hasn't promoted him yet. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. But then again, sometimes talent gets overlooked when surrounded by people who don't appreciate real value. Trevor's jaw tightened. I see. How unexpected. Life's full of surprises, I said, meeting his eyes directly for the first time since the stream. Some pleasant, others less so. The blonde guy tugged on Trevor's arm. Babe, who is this? Trevor's face flushed. Nobody important. Just someone I used to know. The words should have hurt. But instead they felt like confirmation. This was who Trevor really was. Dismissive, cruel, incapable of seeing people as anything more than tools for his advancement. Enjoy your evening, Riker said smoothly, already guiding me away. Henry and I have actual business to attend to. We left Trevor standing there, his confident facade cracking just enough for me to see the panic underneath. As we moved toward the terrace for some air, Riker leaned close. How are you holding up? Better than expected, I admitted. And surprisingly, it was true. Seeing Trevor again hadn't destroyed me. It had crystallized something, clarity about who deserved my energy and who didn't. Good, Riker said, because that was just the opening move. Now the real game begins. I looked out over the city lights, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not healing exactly. Too soon for that. But maybe the first step toward it. Then let's play, I said. The messages started the morning after the gala. My phone buzzed incessantly while I was getting ready for my first official day at North Point. Trevor's name kept appearing on the screen, each notification more desperate than the last. We need to talk. Please don't ignore me. I can explain everything. Henry, this is serious. I deleted each one without reading past the preview. There was nothing he could say that would change what I knew, what I'd seen, what he'd done. The evidence was documented, time-stamped, undeniable. Whatever excuses he wanted to offer were irrelevant now. My new office at North Point was on the 42nd floor, with windows that overlooked the financial district. It was 3 times the size of my old cubicle, with actual furniture that didn't look like it had been salvaged from a 1990s clearance sale. The nameplate on my door read, Henry Mitchell, Senior Analyst, in elegant silver lettering. Something about seeing my name there, official and permanent, made the past 2 weeks feel real in a way they hadn't before. Riker stopped by around 10, leaning against my doorframe with that effortless confidence he carried everywhere. Settling in. Getting there, I said, gesturing at the boxes of personal items I hadn't unpacked yet. Still feels a bit surreal. You'll get used to it. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I wanted to let you know Helix Corporation received a formal notice this morning. We're filing suit for corporate espionage and intellectual property theft. The evidence you helped compile was exactly what our legal team needed. My stomach tightened. And Trevor? His former employer terminated him an hour ago. Apparently they'd been conducting their own internal investigation once we provided them with the initial findings. He's facing criminal charges for data theft and fraud. Riker's expression was neutral, professional, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. Justice moves slowly, but it does move. I should have felt triumphant. This was what we'd been working toward. The entire purpose of documenting Trevor's betrayal so meticulously. But instead I just felt tired. Hollowed out in a way that victory couldn't fill. How are you doing with all this? Riker asked, his tone shifting from business to something more personal. Really doing? Not the polite answer you'd give in a meeting. I considered lying, offering some platitude about being fine and moving forward. But Riker had been honest with me from the beginning. Brutally so. He deserved the same courtesy. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me is glad he's facing consequences. But another part just feels empty. Like I spent 2 years of my life on something that was never real. And now I'm supposed to just move on like those years didn't matter. Riker moved closer, sitting on the edge of my desk. They did matter, Henry. Not because the relationship was genuine. Clearly it wasn't. But because you were genuine. You loved honestly, trusted completely, gave everything you had. That mattered. The fact that Trevor didn't deserve any of it doesn't diminish what you were capable of offering. Something in my chest loosened at his words. I'd been so focused on Trevor's betrayal that I hadn't considered it from that angle. Maybe I hadn't lost 2 years. Maybe I'd learned something about my own capacity for commitment, even if it had been misplaced. Thank you, I said quietly, for saying that, and for everything else. You didn't have to help me. Yes, I did. Riker's gray eyes held mine. I told you before, I hate being played. But more than that, I recognize people who've been underestimated their entire lives. You're brilliant, Henry. Your old company never saw it because they were too busy taking you for granted. Trevor never saw it because he was too focused on what he could extract from you. But I see it. The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. There was something building between us. Had been since that first night in his penthouse. But the timing felt complicated. Messy, too soon after everything with Trevor. As if reading my thoughts, Riker stood. Dinner tonight? There's a new restaurant downtown I've been wanting to try. No business talk, no Trevor discussion. Just 2 people sharing a meal. Is that a good idea? I asked, even though every part of me wanted to say yes. Probably not, he admitted with a slight smile. But I'm asking anyway. Think about it. He left before I could respond, leaving me alone with my thoughts and half-unpacked boxes. That evening, I met Riker at an upscale Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. The atmosphere was intimate without being oppressive. Soft lighting, quiet conversations, the kind of place where people went to actually talk rather than be seen. Riker was already seated when I arrived, having changed from his work suit into dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even more intense. It was the most casual I'd ever seen him, and somehow that felt more significant than anything else. You came, he said, standing as I approached. You invited. I slid into the seat across from him. Would have been rude to decline. We ordered wine, made small talk about the menu, danced around the real conversation we both knew was coming. It wasn't until our entrees arrived that Riker finally cut through the pretense. I need to be honest with you about something, he said, setting down his fork. That first night when I called you after Trevor's stream, I'd been tracking that leak for weeks. Who was responsible before I ever contacted you? I could have gone directly to the authorities, filed the necessary complaints, let the system handle it. My stomach dropped. Then why didn't you? Because when I saw that stream, saw how he talked about you, treated you like you were disposable, Riker's jaw tightened. I wanted him to face consequences from someone he'd actually hurt. I wanted you to have the chance to fight back. Maybe that was selfish of me. Maybe I should have just handled it professionally. But I couldn't watch someone be destroyed like that without offering them a way to stand up. I processed this, trying to sort through my feelings. So this was all about revenge? At first? Maybe. Riker leaned forward. But then I met you. Actually talked to you, worked with you. Saw how you handled everything with grace and intelligence. And it stopped being about revenge. It became about making sure you got what you deserved. The career, the recognition, the life Trevor tried to steal. And what about now? My voice came out softer than intended. What's this about? Riker reached across the table, his hand covering mine. Now it's about the fact that I can't stop thinking about you. The way you rebuilt yourself after being torn down. The way you see things other people miss. The way you laugh when something genuinely surprises you. He paused. I know the timing is terrible. I know you're still processing everything with Trevor. But I needed you to know that what I feel isn't about revenge or business strategy. It's real. My breath caught. Everything about this was too fast. Too complicated, too soon. I just ended an engagement barely 2 weeks ago. Getting involved with someone new, especially my boss, was objectively a terrible decision. But when I looked at Riker, I didn't see Trevor's manipulation or casual cruelty. I saw someone who'd been honest from the beginning, who'd given me power instead of taking it away, who looked at me like I mattered. I need time, I said finally. Not because I don't feel something too, but because I need to figure out who I am without someone else defining it. Trevor or you or anyone else. Riker nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair actually. But I continued, tightening my hand around his, when I figure that out, I'd like to see where this could go. If you're willing to wait. His smile was genuine. Vulnerable in a way I'd never seen from him. I'll wait as long as you need. Henry. I'm not going anywhere. We finished dinner talking about everything except Trevor and work. Books we'd read. Places we wanted to travel. Embarrassing childhood stories. It felt normal in the best way. Like building a foundation for something real instead of rushing towards something temporary. When he walked me to my car, Riker hesitated before stepping back. Thank you for tonight, for being honest about what you need. Thank you for understanding. I unlocked my door, then turned back. And Riker? For what it's worth, I'm glad you made that call. Even if the timing was terrible, even if this is all complicated, I'm glad. The look he gave me was worth every confused, complicated feeling swirling through my chest. I drove home with the city lights blurring past, thinking about second chances and new beginnings, and the strange way life redirects you when you least expect it. Trevor's world collapsed slowly. Then all at once, the first domino fell when his employer's press release hit the major business outlets. Former employee terminated amid corporate espionage investigation. They didn't name him directly, but anyone in the industry could read between the lines. The gossip networks lit up within hours. People who'd once praised Trevor's business acumen were now questioning how much of his success had been built on stolen information. I watched it unfold from the safety of my new position at North Point, occasionally checking the news but mostly focusing on my actual work. Riker had assigned me to lead a major market analysis project, and I was determined to prove that his faith in me wasn't misplaced. The team I managed was small but talented, and for the first time in my career people actually listened when I spoke. They valued my insights instead of dismissing them. The second domino was more personal. Trevor's new boyfriend, the blonde from the stream, posted a lengthy Instagram story about being deceived by someone who only cared about social media clout and financial gain. Apparently, once Trevor lost his job and income, the relationship lost its appeal. The breakup was messy and public, with both of them airing grievances to thousands of followers. I should have felt vindicated watching Trevor's carefully curated image shatter. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad for who I'd thought he was. Sad for the time I'd wasted. Sad that someone could be so fundamentally hollow inside that they'd burn every bridge just to maintain an illusion. 3 weeks after the gala, I was leaving North Point's building when I saw him. Trevor was standing near the parking garage entrance, looking like a shadow of himself. His usual polished appearance had deteriorated. Wrinkled shirt, uncombed hair, the kind of dishevelment that spoke of someone who'd stopped caring about basic maintenance. When our eyes met, something desperate flickered across his face. Henry, please. He moved toward me, hands raised in a placating gesture. Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Every instinct told me to keep walking, to leave him standing there with his excuses and regrets. But there was a part of me that needed closure, needed to look him in the eye one final time and understand how someone could betray another person so completely. 5 minutes, I agreed, crossing my arms. Talk. I messed up. The words came out rushed, practiced, like he'd been rehearsing this speech. Everything with the files, with the stream, with how I treated you. I know I can't take any of it back. But I need you to understand. I was under so much pressure, the lifestyle, the followers, maintaining this image. Everyone expected. Stop. I cut him off before he could continue down that path. You're not going to blame your choices on pressure or expectations or whatever excuse you've convinced yourself justifies what you did. You stole from me, Trevor. You humiliated me publicly. You used our relationship as cover while you built something with someone else. Those were choices. Deliberate, calculated choices. His face crumpled. I never meant to hurt you. That's the problem though, isn't it? I said, and my voice was steady, calm, completely devoid of the pain that had consumed me weeks ago. You didn't think about whether you'd hurt me at all. I was useful, so you kept me around. The second I stopped being useful, I became an obstacle, something to mock for entertainment value. That stream was a mistake. I was drunk trying to impress. No. I shook my head. The stream was honesty. Maybe the only honest thing you ever gave me. You showed me exactly how little I mattered to you, and as much as it hurt at the time, I'm grateful. Because now I know. There's no wondering. No second guessing. No wishing things had been different. You showed me who you really are. Trevor's shoulders sagged. So that's it? We're just done? 2 years and you won't even consider. Consider what? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Getting back together? Forgiving you? Trevor, you didn't just cheat on me. You systematically dismantled my professional credibility, stole intellectual property, committed actual crimes using my access and trust. This isn't about a relationship ending. This is about you facing legal consequences for felony theft. The charges won't stick, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. My lawyer says, your lawyer is lying to you. I checked my watch, signaling this conversation was approaching its end. Riker's legal team has documentation spanning 8 months. Timestamps, file transfers, payment receipts from Helix. You're going to prison, Trevor. Maybe not for long, but long enough. And when you get out, this industry will remember. No one's going to trust you again. You're really just going to stand there and watch me lose everything? The bitterness crept into his tone. After everything we had, we didn't have anything, I said quietly. You had a convenient situation. I had an illusion. But those aren't the same thing, and I'm done pretending they were. I turned to walk away, then paused. There was one more thing he needed to hear, something I'd realized over the past few weeks. You know what the worst part is, Trevor? I thought I was devastated when I found out about the cheating, but the real betrayal wasn't you being with someone else. It was realizing you never saw me as a person, just a resource, just something to be managed and exploited until you'd extracted everything useful. That's what I'll never forgive. Not the infidelity but the fundamental disrespect. His face went pale. Henry, goodbye, Trevor. This time I did walk away, and I didn't look back. The conversation should have left me shaken, should have reopened wounds that were barely starting to heal. But as I drove back to my apartment, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years, like I'd been carrying something heavy without realizing it, and now that weight was finally gone. I texted Riker without overthinking it. Ran into Trevor outside the office. "Wanna grab coffee and decompress?" His response came immediately. "My place. I'll have something stronger than coffee waiting." 40 minutes later, I was back in Riker's penthouse, the city sprawling below us as evening settled in. He handed me a glass of wine without asking if I wanted it, somehow knowing exactly what I needed. "How did it go?" he asked, settling onto the couch beside me. "Better than expected." I took a sip, letting the wine warm my throat. I said what I needed to say. He tried the apology route, the excuse route, the guilt trip route. None of it landed. I'm done. Completely, finally done. Riker studied my face, searching for something. "You sound different." "Light. I feel different." I set down my glass, turning to face him fully. These past few weeks, working at North Point, building something real instead of being someone's safety net. I remembered who I was before Trevor. Or maybe I'm discovering who I could have been if I hadn't spent 2 years making myself smaller to accommodate someone else's ego. And who is that? Riker's voice was soft, curious, someone who doesn't need rescuing, someone who can stand on his own, make his own decisions, fight his own battles. I paused, my heart racing. Someone who's ready to move forward instead of staying stuck in the past. Riker's expression shifted, understanding dawning in his gray eyes. "Henry, I'm ready," I said before I could second-guess myself. "For whatever this is between us. No more waiting. No more healing period. I'm here, I'm whole, and I want to see where this goes. He reached up, cupping my face with a gentleness that contrasted with his usual commanding presence. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, I'm not interested in casual. I don't do halfway. Neither do I. I leaned into his touch. Not anymore. Riker kissed me then, soft and questioning at first, like he was giving me one last chance to change my mind. When I didn't pull away, when I kissed him back with everything I'd been holding back for weeks, something shifted between us. This wasn't rebound. This wasn't escape. This was choice, conscious, deliberate, real. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Riker smiled. I've been wanting to do that since the night you walked into this penthouse looking like your world had ended. Glad you waited, I said, matching his smile. I wasn't ready then. But now, he finished, pulling me closer. Now we begin. 14 months later, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined during those dark days after Trevor's stream. North Point had promoted me twice. I was now director of strategic analysis, overseeing a department of 12 people and heading projects that directly influenced company direction. The work was challenging, demanding, sometimes overwhelming, but it was mine, built on my skills, my insights, my genuine contributions rather than someone else's theft. The industry took notice. I'd been invited to speak at 3 major conferences in the past year, sharing insights on market trends and corporate strategy. People who'd never known my name before Trevor's scandal now respected me on my own merits. It was vindicating in the best possible way, but the professional success, as satisfying as it was, paled in comparison to what I'd built with Riker. We'd kept our relationship private for the first 6 months, both of us wanting to establish clear boundaries between personal and professional. At work he was my boss, demanding, exacting, pushing me to exceed my own expectations. At home he was something else entirely, someone who made dinner with me while we debated politics, someone who fell asleep during documentaries but pretended he'd been watching the whole time, someone who looked at me like I was the most fascinating person he'd ever encountered. Going public had been my decision. I'd gotten tired of hiding, of pretending we were just colleagues when everyone could see the truth anyway. Riker had been hesitant at first, worried about perception and professional complications, but I'd pointed out that we'd already proven we could separate work from personal life. The relationship hadn't compromised my performance or his leadership. If anything, we made each other better. The business community had opinions, of course. Power couple became the go-to descriptor, sometimes said with admiration, sometimes with barely concealed envy. I learned to ignore the whispers, the speculation about whether my promotions were merit-based or nepotism. My work spoke for itself. The results I delivered were quantifiable, undeniable. Trevor had disappeared from my awareness entirely. I'd heard through industry gossip that he'd moved to Seattle, was working some entry-level position at a startup, trying to rebuild under a cloud of reputation damage that followed him everywhere. I felt nothing when someone mentioned his name now. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity, just indifference. He was irrelevant to my life. And that felt like the truest victory. On a Friday evening in late September, Riker and I stood on his penthouse terrace watching the sunset paint the city in shades of amber and rose. He'd been quiet all day, distracted in meetings, checking his phone more than usual. I'd learned to recognize his moods, to know when he needed space to work through something. "You've been somewhere else today," I said, leaning against the railing. "Everything okay?" Riker turned to face me, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "I've been thinking about the past year, about how much has changed. Good changes, I hope, the best." He moved closer, and there was something in his eyes I couldn't quite identify. Nervousness. Maybe? Riker was never nervous. When I called you that night after Trevor's stream, I was angry. At him, at Helix, at the entire situation. I wanted revenge, wanted to take down someone who'd been profiting from lies and theft. "I remember," I said carefully, unsure where this was going. "What I didn't expect was you." His hand found mine, fingers interlacing naturally. "I didn't expect someone who'd take that pain and anger and transform it into something productive. Someone who'd refuse to be defined by betrayal. Someone who'd see me as more than a title or a bank account." My throat tightened. "Riker, let me finish." He smiled, that rare vulnerable expression I'd learned to treasure. You changed everything for me, Henry. Not just the work stuff though. Watching you excel has been incredible. But the personal things, the way you make me laugh, the way you challenge my assumptions, the way you make coming home feel like something worth looking forward to instead of just a place to sleep between meetings. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and my heart stopped. I know this is fast by conventional standards. I know people will have opinions, but I've spent my entire adult life being careful, being strategic, measuring every decision against potential risk. Riker opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single stone, understated, elegant, completely perfect. With you, I don't want to be careful. I want to be certain. And I've never been more certain of anything than this. Are you? I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't quite believe this was happening. Proposing? Yes. He took the ring from the box. Henry Mitchell, will you marry me? Build a life with me? Put up with my workaholic tendencies and terrible taste in action movies? Let me spend the rest of my life proving that not all relationships are built on convenience and exploitation. I was crying, which was ridiculous, because I'd never been the crying type. But standing there with this man who'd helped me rebuild myself, who'd seen me at my worst and chose to stay, who was offering me something real and honest and permanent. How could I not cry? Yes? I managed through tears and laughter. Obviously yes. Riker slipped the ring onto my finger, then pulled me into a kiss that tasted like salt and joy and promise. When we broke apart, we were both grinning like idiots. We're going to scandalize the entire business community, I said, admiring the ring in the fading light. Good. Riker wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them write whatever narrative makes them comfortable. We know the truth, which is that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing. That betrayal can be the catalyst for transformation. That you can lose everything and still come out stronger on the other side. I turned in his arms, looking up at this man who'd become my partner in every sense. You know what's funny? If Trevor's stream had never happened, if he'd never called me a safety net in front of thousands of people, I'd probably still be with him, still convincing myself that mediocrity was enough. Still making myself smaller. His loss, Riker said firmly. My gain. Our gain, I corrected. We both got something out of this disaster. We stayed on the terrace as night fell, talking about wedding plans and honeymoon destinations and the future we were building together. At some point Riker mentioned that North Point was opening a West Coast office and asked if I'd be interested in heading it up. New city, new challenges, new adventures. 2 years ago, the suggestion would have terrified me. Change had always felt like risk, like potential loss. But now, with Riker's ring on my finger and confidence I'd earned through my own accomplishments, change felt like possibility. Let's do it, I said. New office, new city, new chapter. Riker kissed my temple. New chapter, same story. Us against whatever comes next. I looked out over the city, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. Trevor's betrayal had felt like an ending, but it had actually been a beginning. Not just of my relationship with Riker, but of my relationship with myself. Learning to value my own worth, to demand respect, to build something real instead of accepting comfortable lies. The stream that was meant to humiliate me had freed me instead. Trevor had done me the biggest favor of my life by showing his true colors so spectacularly. And the person watching who I didn't know about, he'd turned out to be the person who'd helped me become who I was always meant to be. Sometimes life's cruelest moments are actually its greatest gifts. You just have to be brave enough to unwrap them. I love you, I said, meaning it with every part of myself. Riker tightened his arms around me. I love you too. Now and always. The city lights sparkled below us. And somewhere in that vast network of lives and stories, Trevor was probably still trying to rebuild what he'd destroyed. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about wedding venues and West Coast sunsets and the incredible life I was building with someone who actually deserved my trust. The past was finally completely behind me. The future stretched out ahead, bright with possibility, and for the first time in years, I couldn't wait to see what came next.